Before we begin to look at specific contemporary moral problems, it would be good to consider the distinctions between the concepts of being moral versus the concept of being legal. So let's start by looking at definitions. Moral principles and values have to do with what is right or wrong, good or bad, virtuous or vicious. So, for example, when we were considering the moral theory of Mill, we were focusing on what was good or bad, and it centered around identifying the good. When we were looking at Kant's moral theory, we were considering what actions are right or wrong according to moral laws. And when we looked at Aristotle, we were considering what is virtuous, or in contrast, what is vicious. Of course, legal principles are different. They are laws set forth by a governing body that proscribe or prescribe certain activities among its citizens. So legal principles have a governing body behind them. They tell the citizens what they cannot do and what they must do. Now, think about the differences here between something being legal or moral, or in contrast, we can use the concept of being illegal or immoral. And to show the distinction between the two, we might consider two sets of things that we fit into one category but not in the other. So, for example, candidates for things that are legal but immoral. So these are things that are legal in the United States. At least there are no laws proscribing these activities. But it seems to be on most views that they are immoral. So, for example, lying to a friend simply for personal gain, to use the person. According to Kant, of course, this would be clearly immoral, and on other theories, it is likely immoral as well. Or cheating on a spouse. Almost anyone would agree that is immoral, but it is not illegal. And then there are other candidates for things that are moral, but they are proscribed by the government. They are illegal, such as coasting through a stop sign when late to meet a friend. So you look around, you see that it's safe, there isn't anyone coming, there are no children playing, no bicycles in the area. You've looked, you've checked, but you're late, and you kind of coast through the stop sign. Now that is technically illegal, but if you know that it's safe, you've looked around carefully, it doesn't seem to be immoral. You're not putting anyone in danger. Now, people may disagree about that, but that's a candidate for something that's morally permissible at least, but illegal. And a second candidate I think would be even more telling. It is in fact illegal to fly a kite within the city limits in Chicago. Now, I'm not exactly sure why it is. It's possible that there are problems with electrical lines or things like that, but in any case, it is. However, it seems like if you were in an open park and you had a kite and were flying, you weren't bothering anyone, it seems like it would be a perfectly moral thing to do, and yet technically it would be illegal. So there is certainly a distinction between these two concepts, and we want to keep that in mind. However, in our class in Philosophy 120, as we go on to look at the specific things that we are examining, things like whether or not marketing of organs should be legal, whether drugs should be legal to use, whether abortion ought to be legal, whether physician-assisted suicide or torture ought to be legal. On all of these concepts, we're thinking about whether or not they should be legal and what their legal status ought to be. But right, the motivation behind that is always considering whether something or not is moral. Now, some articles will specifically focus on the morality of what's going on. That would be true when we're talking about abortion, for example. But other articles are more focused on what the legal concepts, what the legal situation should be for that particular topic. So keep in mind the distinction between the two. Something could be moral but illegal, or legal but immoral. But we're going to be considering both of them as we go through the various topics in this course.